Hi, this is a Friday afternoon, August 14th update on the search results for data analytics on the Google US search engine. As always, the thoughts in this video are just mine, and in making decisions, consult an SEO professional or your trusted SEO team for the best information for your situation. If you haven't checked out Market Brew, please take a look. I helped co-found the company back in 2006, and the search engine modeling technology I think is more relevant than ever before. Okay, I wanted to review a Market Brew report back on July 29th. I was going through some of this data for the data analytics search results on Google US, and I thought I'd illustrate some things that we can take away from some of these reports. So if you're not familiar with Market Brew is a search engine modeling technology that allows users to define, create, and deploy statistical replicas of any search engine environment. It does this by starting with a generic search engine model, complete with all the modern families of algorithms, representing everything from on-page to off-page ranking factors. Each part of the search engine model's bias and weights are then finely tuned by an artificial intelligence process called particle swarm optimization. At the conclusion of this process, the generic search engine has essentially been transformed into a very useful and highly calibrated replica of the real thing. So this search engine model is currently auto self-calibrated to the target search engine environment, Google US. The following sites are represented in this model: Investopedia, Simplilearn, and Intellipat. They're currently ranking number 2, number 4, and number 9 respectively on the target search engine environment. You can see the summary of changes in the model, the current model rankings on July 29th, and the previous model rankings roughly about a month before on July 1st. And as you can see from this query score change chart, not much has changed between these three sites in the past month. However, to note, the boost factors have changed. So one of the things that the Market Brew models do is if it senses divergence from the model and the real target search engine environment, such as Google US here, it will actually recalibrate the model. One of the more interesting things that you can do with these Market Brew models is track the behavior and characteristics of the target search engine environment. So in this case right here, we can see that two factors have actually become less important over the past month. And this happens because Google's neural net is adjusting its weightings in all the areas of its search engine, just like Market Brew would do. And it actually is giving us insight into which areas are more or less important now according to how they're training that neural net. And so, of course, one of the offshoots of having the model slightly change is that certain other areas that may have not decreased are now more important. So you can see that even though a lot of the sites in this model haven't really changed their site, the search engine, by way of changing its boost factors, has put more emphasis on certain areas. And the sites that have done well in those areas are sort of riding that wave up. And that's sort of why you saw Simplilearn and Intellipat kind of slightly bump up from the last month. So one of the things that these models will do for you is it will dissect each part of the query score, including all the different subscores in the model. And this represents sort of all the culmination of the different areas of the model. So everywhere from off-page to on-page. And what it's doing is it's comparing the outperformer in each part of the model. And this outperformer is not necessarily always the number one site in the search results. It compares the outperformer in that part of the model against this specific site. In this case, we're looking at Simplilearn. So let's just go down into the number 2 site here, simplilearn.com. You can kind of see the focus is on the domain rank as well as the semantic areas of the model. One of the things that the Market Brew models do for you automatically is they discover which are the biggest statistical differences between this site and the outperformer. And so when I say outperformer, the number one position in their search results isn't always the number one position in every part of the search engine, right? So they are good enough in enough areas to be number one, but they may not necessarily be number one in one specific area. So when we do this statistical analysis, is we're actually looking at the outperformer in that part of the model, not necessarily the number one site. And we compare, in this case, Simplilearn to that outperformer. And by doing that, we can identify what are the biggest areas, what are the biggest statistical gaps in the model, which area it is. And then in that area, we can start to do the same analysis. We just cursively go down one level deeper, and we can understand which algorithms are the biggest statistical differences between Simplilearn and the outperformers in all of those algorithms. So essentially what the system is automatically discovering for us here is that Simplilearn has the biggest statistical gap with domain rank. This is essentially a euphemism for running a PageRank calculation with the subdomains as nodes. So essentially it's a subdomain based link graph. And that's essentially what domain rank is, and represents the backlink structure. So you can see that MarketBrew is automatically discovering which areas have the biggest statistical differences, the domain rank and the semantic areas. And then in each area, such as semantic here, it's breaking down into individual algorithms and telling us what are the areas that have the biggest statistical differences in those specific algorithms between Simplilearn and the outperformer. So one of the things I'd like to do here is look from the perspective of Simplilearn's SEO team and understand why are they getting crushed in these areas of the search engine model. So I wanted to kind of use this as an opportunity to talk about search engines and the query layer of the search engine. So more importantly, the real-time interface that users use when they come to a search engine. So when you type into a search bar into Google a search query, one of the first things that it's doing is it's grabbing all of these pre-calculated areas of the model and taking your keyword query and running a scoring methodology on that to come up with a query score, a final query score that'll give us the ordering of these search results. And of course, there's some filtering that can go on, things like filtering only 1 or 2 pages from each site before you show the user the search results. That's a common thing that you can do. You don't really know that this is going on unless you actually look at a real search engine underneath the hood. Like in MarketBrew, you can actually see the duplicate pages. So in some cases, Investopedia may have 100 pages that rank better than the best page from Simplilearn, but we don't see that because we only see 1 page from this site. And that's sort of how most modern search engines operate. So the thing I wanted to look at is what is one little thing that we can do from Simplilearn.com to increase this query score. Now, we saw that the backlink structure is one of the biggest parts of this statistical gap right here. So you can see the domain rank between it and the outperformer is significant. It's one of the most significant parts of this the statistical gap for Simplilearn. So they're going to have to work on their PR. They're going to have to work on their backlink structure. And that's something that's more of a long-term thing. But what's something that we can do right away? Well, first of all, we know that there's some semantic algorithms that are contributing to the statistical gap between the number 2 and number 1 sites in this model. And we can see that down here, the statistical significance of this market focus algorithm as well as the meta title have the largest statistical gaps between it and the outperformer. So let's look at some of the things that they can easily control. These are the semantic type algorithms, and obviously the 2 algorithms that are the biggest statistical anomalies here are the market focus and the meta title. So the biggest statistical anomaly is this market focus algorithm, and we can look at the outperformer, which happens to be the number 1 position, Investopedia, and its market focus algorithm and its outcome, and the Simplilearn.com's landing page and its outcome. And we can compare why it's getting beat so much by Investopedia. So let's take a look at the market focus algorithm for Investopedia.com, and then we'll compare that with Simplilearn.com's market focus outcome. The Investopedia market focus basket is pretty stuffed with 3-word shingles containing the words data analytics. So you can kind of see this all the way down. It's primarily because of the anchor text citation structure around this landing page. So they're sending links with the anchor text data analytics, and they're sending it with some power, right? So it's coming from some of the major pages in the site. Whereas if we look at Simplilearn over here, its basket of phrases doesn't have as much of the 3-word shingles with the word data analytics stuffed in here, right? So we can see one right here that doesn't have data analytics in this, and this is the number 4 position. So it's a little bit weak on this side, and the reason behind that is also its anchor text. You can see that while they're using these anchor text words in the linking to this page, it's coming from very low value pages. So this has been essentially rounded down to 0 here. And because of this, it doesn't have as much weight as another landing page that has a lot of citation structure around it. So it's relying mostly on the phrases and this sort of keyword density analysis. And whenever a search engine has to do that, it's never a good thing. So you always want to round it and shape it with the right anchor text to give that basket of phrases the best shot it has against matching this. And one of the things I wanted to note here is we're going to talk about the meta title and the Lucene query parser and the way that its scoring methodology works. That same scoring methodology is being applied to this market focus basket in real time. So these baskets are obviously pre-calculated, and as a user types in a keyword into the search bar, one of the subscores is this market focus basket score. It's attempting to match this market focus basket with the keywords that the user put in, and the outcome of this market focus score happens to be one of the biggest statistical differences in this search result page. So from Simplilearn's perspective, one of the easiest things they can do is not worry too much about the content on the page, but look at the anchor text linking to the page and making sure those links are coming from more prominent pages within the site. Looking a little further down the report, you can see that Investopedia and Simplilearn are also duking it out on the meta title. And this gives us a little bit of opportunity to talk about the Lucene scoring algorithm. So MarketBrew uses the Lucene query parser. This is a fairly famous query parser. The methodologies behind it are used in all the modern search engines. The four major differences in the scoring algorithm are these listed here: the TF, IDF, chord, and length norm. So one of the cool things about MarketBrew's automated discovery system is that it's looking at all the different areas of this Lucene scoring algorithm and determining which area is the weakest for Simplilearn.com. And so you can kind of see down here, it's actually pointing out that this landing page on Simplilearn is not ranking well with the meta title because of the length norm portion of this matching algorithm. And you can kind of see this here, that the length norm is the measure of importance of a term according to the total number of terms in the field. So visually looking at this, it makes complete sense, right? So the Investopedia landing page, it's matching 2 out of 3 words, and the Simplilearn.com's landing page is matching half of its words, right? So 4 out of 8. So the MarketBrew model has identified that this is one of the biggest statistical gaps in the semantic areas of the search engine model. So one of the takeaways for Simplilearn.com here is that because this is the landing page that's being presented to Google as the best page for data analytics, it's essentially bifurcating some of that ranking to other keywords, right? So data science, big data. And so they're trying to get away with having one landing page that pulls in these 3 similar but separate keywords. And in doing so, they're essentially diluting this meta title score. And it happens to be one of the main factors between the distance between itself and the competitor above it. So in practice, we use these MarketBrew models to make adjustments to our landing pages. If you're the SEO team for Simplilearn.com, you simply will make a change to this meta title and then rerun the model to see both that meta title score go up and also the query score, which the meta title score is a part of. In this way, we can essentially track the behavior and characteristics by simply looking at the trend as we make changes to different parts of the model. Well, that's it for this week's peek into the search engine result pages for data analytics. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next week.